about 2020 is that it's shown that when we work together and support each other and make something a collective priority, we're capable of change on a massive scale. And this conference is an opportunity to come together to unpack 2020 and to explore how we can work together to rise to the challenge.
There needs to be dramatic change from fossil fuels and associated industries to renewables. There need to be changes in a whole variety of other ways of doing things. And the only way forward, unfortunately, is governmental. You can't have governments that are hands-off. They have to be steering this process.
You just have to look outside the door of a narrowly defined economic paradigm to see that other ways of thinking, being, planning, problem solving exist. However, our business world, our politics, and our lives to some extent are dominated, if not suffocated, by this narrow values framework.
When we think about the climate emergency, it is for sure bigger than the pandemic emergency. That is something that we should recognize. That is something that should make us able to strengthen our action. But the concept of emergency, it is an important one. So as we are in an emergency, we should recognize the need to have urgent actions, urgent initiatives, urgent measures to raise our ambition and to recognize that unfortunately we are living in a very difficult political context.
So I think a role for education, a role for activists is to try to think about how can we host, how can we cultivate different kinds of conversations where collective meanings can be generated. There's a lot we need to think about at the level of public infrastructure and political intervention, but also collective and individual efforts around creating good practices.
The gap between what we all envision as a fair world and an equal world and actually the ability, or I don't want to say the will, because I think it's beyond the will, that how ready we are to actually cross that bridge, swim that cold water to get to the other side, which will mean certainly to sit within our uncomfortableness, challenge yourself, give away some power that we have, because all of this also at the core is very much about basically the role of power.
The language of community has become very important globally in dealing with the pandemic. The language, though, has very successfully replaced an understanding of community and community work, and the people who are in communities having a right to have a say and a right to be part of the decisions that are made.
Hope, like in the spaces that we're in right now, is hard individually, it can be hard institutionally, it can be hard organizationally. But I think kind of adopting militant hope, it also situates and describes hope as a responsibility. And it's something that we should seek to reproduce continually within our movements and within ourselves.
We need to choose which future we want to be part of. As Joanna Macy famously said, we need to decide, are we part of the great unraveling or the great turning? And I personally think that we'll look back on 2020 and realise that the falling apart we're seeing today had to happen in order for the great turning to come about.